Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and today is a good day. After weeks of grinding, I was finally able to finish all the XLs for my Shadow Trumbeak. This comes at a perfect time because with the current Go Wild area lead-up event, you can actually TM away frustration. So, after spending entirely too much Stardust and TMing off frustration, the Trumbeak is ready to go. Shadow Trumbeak is a normal and flying type Pokemon with the moveset of Peck, Drill Peck, and Rock Blast. It's definitely not a Pokemon that's recommended for climbing, but I was able to absolutely terrorize opponents today with it. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and we're off to a pretty nice start in game number 1, Credilli into Shadow Quagsire. Opponent safe switches into Spidops, and out comes Shadow Trumbeak. Shadow Trumbeak is winning that charge stack priority tie by an absolute mile, and Spidops puts up the shield. Shadow Trumbeak is so frail that I absolutely have to give the shield back. They end up baiting with the lunge, but the threat of a Rock Tomb is just far too scary. My opponent doesn't build up to the Rock Tomb. I was going to CMP tie them to the Rock Tomb, but instead they're just going to go for the lunge. Even a resisted lunge did half my health. Oh my goodness, this Pokemon is incredibly frail. They're going to pivot out, making a catch onto the Volt Switch Fortress. I'm going to bank some energy on the Trumbeak and bring back in Credilli. Things could get a little bit awkward now because my Credilli is very strong into their team, but unfortunately they're very strong into my Charizard. So my Charizard doesn't really have anywhere it can go. Fortress is going to take some pretty nice damage even from the -1 Rock Tomb, and I'm able to get to a second Rock Tomb as well. This is big, as this is just going to be knocking them out and they lose a bunch of energy. They can bring back in the Spidops, as Spidops was pretty close to the lunge, and I just have to let this go. It's going to be the Charizard show from here on out. In comes Quagsire. Water guns are absolutely shredding, but Dragon Breath is very, very helpful. I'm actually getting some fast move pressure, and now my opponent is in a near impossible spot. Do you shield up the Blast Burn or the Drill Peck? Both are going to do monster damage. They choose to shield the Blast Burn. They get a farm down, but it does not matter. Trumbeak has the Drill Peck loaded. Even if they left with the move, they're not winning that CMP tie. Drill Peck KOs. In comes the Spidops, and my opponent resigns the match. We move to the next game and pick up a really nice lead, Credilli into Togekiss. Now, I'm going to always try and play the zeros with the Credilli unless I absolutely have to put up a shield. And that's because I have two way glassier Pokemon in the back. With two glass cannons, I cannot afford to be burning shields on the bulky Credilli. So I'm just going to play the zeros and send in Charizard. Charizard answered with Ice Fang Hippowdon, and I'm able to make it to the Blast Burn as they make it to the Weather Ball Rock. I'm not baiting, Blast Burn connects, and Hippowdon gets absolutely deleted. In comes Water Gun Quagsire. Quagsire, I'm only going to get to an Air Cutter, but even an Air Cutter, look at that, still does quite a lot of damage. And now it's time, in comes Trumbeak. These Shadow Pecks are adding up so much. I know my opponent does have 2 Pecks of energy on the Togekiss, meaning that I need to leave with at least 3 Pecks over the move, and that's exactly what I'm going to get. They will make the last second Aqua Tail. In comes the Togekiss, and I'm able to get the double up. Even though Rock Blast is super effective, Drill Peck is such a good move that it actually does more damage. Shadow Trumbeak winning that charge attack priority tie. Togekiss is not hanging on, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, leading Credilli into Zweilous, an incredibly cool pick, and honestly a bit of a problem spot for this team, as Zweilous is going to have very good play into all 3 of my Pokemon. Even against the Dragon Breath Charizard, Zweilous is still able to put up a very nice fight. Dark Pulse lands, I will return fire with the Rock Tomb, and then look to get aggressive and pivot into the Charizard. In comes Charizard, opponent is going to be sending out Salazzle, and look at the spice. You absolutely love to see people breaking out the spice post-legend. Salazzle does have really fast pacing to spam out these Poison Fangs, but I have to put up the shield, because if I no shield, I'm just getting incinerated down. Honestly, even putting up a shield, I'm getting incinerated down by this Salazzle. Air Cutter is going to be shielded, and Charizard just hangs on to make another Air Cutter. This Air Cutter, it's easily going to be knocking out Salazzle, and I get the boost. In comes Fortress, I pivot into the Shadow Trumbeak, and my opponent at this point realizes there is no chance, they cannot beat the Trumbeak, and they will resign the match. Credilli into Shadow Gyarados in the next match, a very nice lead for the Credilli. Well, it should be a nice lead on paper, but with how fast Gyarados is, Gyarados can genuinely make this extremely uncomfortable. My goal here is the same as with the Togekiss lead. Tank a move, get a shield, and then get aggressive and pivot into Charizard. Dragon Breath Shadow Charizard is just incredibly flexible. I'm shielding up the Aqua Tail, and this should force my opponent out, as the threat of an Air Cutter will be too scary. In comes Gastrodon, and I'm able to farm up a ton of energy, but I know that a Blast Bird will not take the KO, so I will go for the Air Cutter. My opponent is going to undertap a Body Slam, and I should be able to hang on here. I want to try and exit with as much residual energy as possible, so I'll farm up and throw on 7, so that way the Mud Slap won't land. But to my surprise, my opponent puts up the shield and farms me down. This is honestly great, because all Trumbeak has ever wanted is a shield advantage, and that's exactly what it's going to get. In comes Credilli just to force him to waste energy. Shadow Trumbeak gets the farm down. Alright, trainer, what do you have? They're going to bring in Gyarados, they're going to save a move. In the back is Diggersby, and this should be a winning endgame for the Shadow Trumbeak. Drill Peck connects, that's big damage onto the Diggersby, and the important thing is, even though I am exceedingly frail, I don't think a Fire Punch will knock me out, so I will no shield. It's going to be close, but Shadow Trumbeak on very low HP will get the double up. Back-to-back Drill Pecks are loaded. I am not in one Dragon Breath range, so even as the Dragon Breath goes through, we make the Drill Peck, knock out the Gyarados, and win the game. Hopping into the next match, leading Credilli into Gastrodon. This is an amazing lead. My opponent is going to look to immediately save switch into Charjabug, and this is a problem. Charjabug hits for super effective damage into my entire team. I hate the fact that I have to put up an early shield with the Credilli, but I'm anticipating since my opponent is pretty weak to the Credilli, they will shield back. And I am proven right, so that is very, very good news for me. Because if my opponent didn't shield back, then being down a shield endgame would be really bad for the Shadow Flyers in the back. So I'm only going to shield once. If my opponent double shields, I am not going to be shielding the Credilli again, but they end up no shielding and getting knocked out. In comes Shadow Scizor, and this could be a problem. I pivot into the Charizard, but I'm on Dragon Breath. Dragon Breath Charizard actually loses to Scizor. Night Slash absolutely rocks Charizard, and in comes Gastrodon. I'm only making one move, so I'm full sending the Blast Burn. That's big damage, and my opponent will farm me down. However, now I can get a huge energy head start with the Trumbeak. In comes Trumbeak, and I'm going to be shielding up the Water Pulse because it's going to do way more damage than anything Scizor can do. So the Water Pulse does get shielded, and now I can go for a full farm. I exit with a ton of energy on the Trumbeak, and the good news for me is I'm pretty close to a move on the Credilli as well. So I'm at the back-to-back Drill Pecks. First one is going to get the shield. Scizor wins Charge Attack priority. The question is, can I hang on to a Night Slash? The answer is probably no. Night Slash takes the knockout. Credilli barely hangs on to make the Rock Tomb, and that will secure the game. So we found a Pokemon Trumbeak can lose Charge Attack priority to, but we're still able to get the win. Great lead in the next match, Credilli into Lantern. Opponent safe switches into a Shadow Fortress, and oh my goodness, I'm so happy that this is not switch locked onto the Credilli. In comes Charizard, I'm able to outpace, make it to the Blast Burn, and that picks up the one-hit KO. Back in comes Lantern, these water guns shredding through the Charizard. I'm only getting one charge attack, so let's go for it all. Blast Burn lands, big damage onto the Lantern, and Shadow Charizard is absolutely deleting this team. Lantern will go for the Surf. That's not going to be a problem whatsoever. In the back, that's a big problem, and its name is Shadow Scizor. I think what I had to do is probably stay in with the Credilli, Rock Tomb just to lower their attack, and then bring in the Trumbeak. But look at Trumbeak, man. It's so frail. It just gets fully farmed down. I have no choice. I have to resign the match. Moving to the next match, picking up a bit of an interesting lead, Credilli into Araquanid. Araquanids typically don't run Bug Buzz, so this is actually a favorable lead for the Credilli. Nice catch from my opponent. They're able to save Araquanid and catch the Rock Tomb onto Shadow Hippowdon. This is the Ice Fang Hippowdon, and my plan here is pretty simple. I'm going to farm up to the Grass Knot, bait with the Rock Tomb, and then once I have them at -2, I can send in the Charizard. I've already done enough damage that they should be in Air Cutter range. Charizard always going to have to shield the Weather Ball Rock even at -2, and now I can look to overfarm and win the Charge Attack priority tie. Air Cutter, it's obviously going to be taking the knockout. My opponent is going to double shield, and I think I have to let the Charizard go. It's time. Let's go Trumbeak. In comes Trumbeak. Trumbeak gets the full farm down, exiting with a lot of energy. And they bring in Abomasnow. Abomasnow farming up. In comes Araquanid. And Araquanid's not going to like this Drill Peck. Drill Peck is going to land devastating damage onto the Araquanid. Araquanid only going to go for a Bubble Beam here because I'm so incredibly low. But as long as I bank energy and then switch into the Credilli, I will be fine. Credilli is going to be hit with a last-second charge attack. Bubble Beam will not knock out. My opponent actually undercharges. They want to try and exit with as much energy as possible, but all the energy in the world is not going to help you win that CMP tie. Trumbeak's Drill Peck takes the knockout, and that's a good game. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Credilli into Gastrodon. Gastrodons typically don't like to stick around in this matchup, so my opponent will retreat into Fearow. Now Fearow paired with Gastrodon makes me think there could be a second flyer in the back. Gastrodon Double Flyer is the perfect team for Trumbeak to absolutely shred. So I'm going to be no shielding Credilli, just getting the shield advantage, and then once I have them debuffed, I can send out Trumbeak. Trumbeak going to be shielding everything even though it is debuffed because Trumbeak is just so exceedingly frail, and now I can look to overfarm and play to the CMB tie. My opponent doesn't actually fall for it, they're going to take the free peck, so they do have a Drill Peck stored, and there's an aggressive pivot out. In comes Gastrodon. Gastrodon is a pretty bulky Pokemon. Look at the Shadow Drill Peck damage. That's going to set up an awesome farm down for the Trumbeak. They're forced to throw an alignment, or I could have thrown and just knocked them out and not had to burn a shield. But now I just get to save a ton of energy, and I decide to pivot into the Credilli. My thought process here is that I knew I had some residual energy on the Credilli, so getting an energy head start would help it make a move. In comes the Fearow. Fearow was hoping to peck down, but it's not to be. Rock Tomb takes the knockout. In the back, it is Double Flyer. It's Galarian Moltres. I have a guaranteed win condition by sending in the Charizard, as they are 10 turns away from their fly, and I can outpace them by 1 turn to the Air Cutter. An Air Cutter plus the Drill Peck is a guaranteed knockout. Even if they try and predict the combo play, which they do, it does not matter because Shadow Trumbeak is winning that Charge Attack priority tie. Down goes Galarian Moltres, and that's a good game. Tricky lead in the next match, Credilli into Charjabug. Charjabug, we've already established, is a big problem for this team. I'm going to be putting up an early shield in the hopes that I will be able to get it back, as that worked out well last time, but my opponent, they get aggressive, they pivot into Furret, and suddenly, I'm in so much trouble. I gave up a shield early on, and I was not able to get the shield back. Here, as well, I should have caught the Trailblaze onto the Charizard. That could have been a way back in the game, but now I've put myself in a range where I'm actually going to get knocked out by an X-Scissor on the Credilli. Already being down a shield means that at this point, I have lost this game. Even with a boost on the Charizard, I am going to get fully swept by this Charjabug. I am not going to get to see the third Pokemon, which is entirely my fault. I could have played this game substantially better, but I included this game to show the risks of running a strategy like this, where you have 2 glass cannons in the back. When it goes wrong, it goes seriously wrong. As I get knocked out, I was hoping I could hang on, maybe a 1 HP survive, but it was not to be. They're going to be able to grab the shield with the discharge. My only hope is a farm down because they have a shield, and I don't get the farm down. They make the discharge, and as predicted, I do not see their third Pokemon, and we will lose the game. A familiar lead in the next match, Credilli into Araquanid. Araquanid last time, they did end up going for a catch, and this one catches as well, but this is actually a far worse spot to be in. They caught onto a Clodsire. This team is triple weak to Clodsire, so this is a pretty big problem. I'm just going to farm up energy with the Credilli and wait for them to throw. This is the only Pokemon on my team that actually wants to take a move from Clodsire. They end up baiting with Stone Edge, and now I send in the Charizard. Charizard is so far behind on energy here, which is very uncomfortable, so I'm forced to burn an early shield. I'm going to throw the Blast Burn right before they get the move, but the switch timer's up, and back in comes Araquanid. That is very unfortunate. Araquanid does get absolutely rocked by a Blast Burn, and I can't afford to double shield. So I let it go, but my opponent went for a very ill-advised Bubble Beam bait, and that's actually going to cost them. They were up a shield. There's no reason to bait there. I'm pressured to no shield. And now, I'm able to get my attack back to normal with a well-timed Air Cutter boost, and suddenly, things are looking up. In comes the Clodsire, and Clodsire will fire off its energy. Honestly, an Air Cutter wouldn't have done a whole lot of damage, so I liked committing to the Blast Burn just to force their hand. Now, I can look to take knockouts with Shadow Drill Pecks, and if Clodsire is weak in the back, which it appears they are, they can put up a shield. Partway through this game, it looked completely unwinnable, but suddenly, I feel like I'm not in a bad spot, especially when they reveal Abomasnow as the final Pokemon. Abomasnow would get shredded by a Shadow Drill Peck. They're forced to shield just to get ruthlessly comboed with all the energy that I stored up from earlier. Rock Tomb gets them low. I can now commit to a farm down to force them to throw energy, and once they throw energy, their fate is sealed, because this gives a 1 peck head start to the Trumbeak. Clodsire will now get outpaced. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Hopping to the final match, and what do you know, it's one final Araquanid lead. So far, the Araquanids have gone 2 for 2 on catching out, so I'm just going to overfarm. And this time, they don't go for the catch. So I overfarmed by 1 watching for the catch, but they don't end up going for it. Instead, they're just going to stay in. I'm just going to continue to farm up with the Credilli, and my opponent, I think, should have thrown the Water Pulse first, because now I'm able to force a shield and put them at -2. My guess is maybe their game started and it forced them into a CMP tie that they do not win. They Water Pulse, I go Charizard, and I know this is not enough for another Water Pulse, so I am just going to be no shielding. Bubble Beam will debuff the Charizard, and out comes Ice Fang Hippowdon. Hippowdon really not going to appreciate a Blast Burn, even if it is at -1. Blast Burn is going to be shielded. Oh my goodness, can they get the farm down? No, they cannot. Shadow Charizard, Stone Cold Killer, taking the knockout with a Blast Burn. In the back is Abomasnow, 2-0 Shield Trumbeak. Get that Abomasnow out of here, and that is a good game. All in all, I had an incredible amount of fun with Shadow Trumbeak. I went 10-5 across the 3 sets that I played with this team, and I felt like one of the losses, I actually ended up cutting it, was just the worst throw by me in a very long time. It was an endgame versus a Shadow Scizor, where I tried to commit to a farm down with Trumbeak, and they only had 1 shield, and in doing so, I had back-to-back drill pecks and just never threw them. So I ended up cutting that footage because I don't really feel like there was a lot to be learned there other than, wow, Henry should really click the back-to-back drill pecks that he has and win the game. But unfortunately, I committed to the farm down, and I ended up losing on like 1 HP because of it. So a very important reminder to always know how many shields your opponent has. I had just forgotten that earlier in the game, I had forced one of their shields, and it ended up costing me in a big way. But this team went 4-1, 2-3, 4-1. Shadow Trumbeak, it's definitely not a meta Pokemon by any means. It is an outrageously expensive build for a Pokemon that does almost the exact same things as Shadow Toucannon, but just with slightly better stats. But man, Trumbeak is a Pokemon that I do actually quite enjoy. I believe on Cerebi, they always do a list of the least visited pages of all the Pokemon, and Trumbeak is always #1 on the list of the Cerebi page that no one ever visits, because everyone just forgets Trumbeak is a Pokemon. So I'm happy that for at least today, for a Pokemon that is so obscure that it's never even gotten a single YouTube video of someone playing it in the Great League, we get to take Shadow Trumbeak out of the Spice Cabinet and absolutely shred opponents above Legend rank. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide helps me to do what I do. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.